Hey everybody, Real Estate Ninja here. I hope you are doing great. I've got two great stories for you. Now they're about commercial mortgage-backed securities, and I want to again paint the picture of why this implosion in the commercial space is going to lead to amazing opportunities in the residential space. Um, this is such a big bubble, it's absolutely insane. So thank you so much for joining me today. All right. This first story is out of The Real Deal Real Estate News, and this is a couple of days ago. It's entitled These 100 Million Plus CMBS, which again stand for Commercial Mortgage-Backed Security Loans, went to special servicing in March. And just to give you an idea of what special servicing is, hey Carlos, good morning, man. Glad you're here. Um, Special servicing is their nice way of saying, oh crap, they're not paying. All right. And they're going to try and give special, interesting ways to like, let's figure this out. Let's negotiate. People understand that as banks start to crash because people are not paying their debts, they get really desperate to work with you. Okay. And we're going to walk a lot of people through this in the residential side because I had to go through this personally. I sold a lot of my homes in 2006, but I kept three, and three financial disasters happened to me in my life. My mother dying, and I was paying for her hospice, are because she didn't have any money, and that was her dying wish, and my renter dying, my only renter left, and the only rental I had in the property, right? So we had a little bit of time, and it was a blessing that she lived there till the day she passed because we really loved her. She's our first renter. And then an insurance fraud thing happened where they just started funneling literally like 30% of my paycheck out of my paycheck and said, "Oh yeah, you signed up for this insurance thing." I'm like, "No, I didn't." Anyway, horrible things happen, right? Well, I had to go through negotiating with banks, and I actually was the only person I know of that negotiated with banks, even to the point where they gave me the property, just gave it to me. And people don't understand how willing they are to negotiate with you. Now, that doesn't mean that you should go right out there and start um, uh, you know, telling people or to say you should stop making your payments if you're having a hard time, because the banks have ways of figuring out if that's the case. If you could pay, they have ways of figuring that out. But this special servicing right now is happening with commercial projects. We're talking over $100 million debts. All right. 9 loans, mostly on office and retail properties, were transferred with 9-figure balances. It says high interest rates continue to dog owners of commercial real estate, offices in particular, and some are running out of time to pay debts. Last month, according to TREP, 9 CMBS loans with balances of at least $100 million were sent to special servicing, a precursor to default. Here are details on each of them ranked by outstanding balances. Now, I'm only going to go through a few. And to the 63 people that hit the thumbs up, thank you so much because it gets this information out, because this is going to affect literally millions of homeowners as this commercial real estate collapses. Lending is going to go to nothing. I mean, it is going to be so hard to get a mortgage. You're going to see this happen in the next 6 months, a little bit past that. It's going to happen in the residential thing, but it's going to be because of this. I'm the only person that I know of on YouTube that has been warning about this for almost 2 years. My first video on CMBS was 2 Junes ago. And I said, this is the big one. Get ready for this. This is what is going to take down the real estate behemoth. Here, Aon Center, $443 million in Chicago. Massive loan on 601 West Companies, Aon Center at 200 East Randolph Street in Chicago went to special servicing 8 years after the firm purchased the 2.8 million square foot Class A office tower for $712 million. Barry Sternlight's special servicer LNR Partners is handling a $43 million tranche of the $678 million debt package secured by the 83-story tower. The total comes due July 1st. They're already not paying on it. Blackstone gave back its headquartered building in Manhattan about 8 months ago, and the bank is taking a 50% loss on it. And what people need to understand is that Blackstone did not own even its own headquarters. Okay. These too big to fail companies are going to fail. And I want people to understand that they are big because they are hollow. There is nothing there. They have no assets. Okay. They are literally a Ponzi scheme. Very similar, almost identical to your pension fund. Okay. So people need to understand that. And then you prepare appropriately. It's not here. Let me just take a little side note here. You know what blows me away so many times? People are putting 16, 17, 18% of their wages because of a tax savings, right? To a Ponzi scheme where they could be taking that extra money minus the tax savings and just paying off their house and literally own something that nobody could take away unless they stop paying the taxes on it, right? But also what happens is they could actually retire earlier because they don't need as much money because they own their home. And as long as if they ever wanted to sell it and buy another one, they would buy something comparable. Yes, it would be hard to buy something more expensive if you were living on a tight, strict budget. But so many people are throwing money into these Ponzi schemes, only like my old neighbors to retire with $1 million in the bank. And they retired in 2007 and had to go back to work after a full life of working their butts off in a concrete construction company. They had to go back to work as a school janitor and a school secretary, right? I mean, just it blows my mind that people are doing this, but this is what's happening. The Ponzi scheme is opening up right now. Gas company tower and World Trade Center parking garage. Okay, now, I don't know if most of you understand this, that parking garages are a massive business. You know, the money comes in, those aren't owned by cities all the time. A lot of them are privately owned by investors that pool their money and then they make money off of it. And the cities are cool. They're like, yeah, we need parking. So you're willing to use your land as parking? Yeah, we're going to charge for it. And they go, done, you know? And so World Company Tower and World Trade Center parking garages. 350 million. This is out of Los Angeles. Brookfield Properties defaulted, and Brookfield's been defaulting on a lot of large properties right now. On this loan on its downtown Los Angeles trophy office tower at 555 West 5th Street in February. The financing package connected to the property was $465 million, according to an SEC filing. Concurrently, Brookfield also defaulted on $319 million in loans connected to nearby 777 South Figueroa Street. I've actually been down there. Now, I want you to understand also when people started defaulting on their homes, right? In 2006, 2007, I want people to understand that it was a big deal because there was a lot of homes defaulting and they're all worth little bits of money, right? We're now talking about one property that the dollar amount compared to how many homes that could buy right now, even in California, is staggering, right? When the average home price in California, let's say, is $700,000, put 7,000 into what 469,000 or whatever it was million, 469 million. Divide that and you go, okay, it's just like those houses all just went into default. All right, so start to think like that. Barringtown Center, 300 million, and this is out of Paramus, New Jersey. The Bergen County Malls loan went into special servicing last month, even as Urban Edge Properties plans to transform the property. The landlord is proposing to redevelop part of the mall into 456 apartments across 2 multifamily buildings, but it's in default. And then the list keeps going on. Now, I want to go into another story and thank the 151 people that hit the thumbs up. Thank you so much. Oh, and if you guys know, if you've never heard of this channel, this is a different channel than the Economic Ninja. This is Real Estate Ninja. It's a backup channel in case anything happens. You know what I mean? If you haven't subscribed, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you're subscribed on the Economic Ninja channel, this is a different channel. I put out different videos. All right, right here, KBRA releases research, and it's entitled CMBS Office Exposure to Large Layoffs. Now, this is out of Yahoo 3 days ago. Out of New York, KBRA releases research on U.S. commercial mortgage-backed securities office exposure to recent white-collar layoffs as announced by large companies. Now, if you've been following me for a long time, you know that I've been calling for literally there's going to be a day in 2023 where we are seeing 10,000 layoffs a day. Right now, nationally, I believe we're between 2,000 and 3,000 layoffs a day. And it started last December. And it was when the FedEx and UPS were coming out and going, we're laying people off before Christmas. And Amazon's like, we're laying people off before Christmas. Like, oh man, the economy's turned fast. When the busiest time of the year, those companies are going, instead of hiring people, they're firing people. It's getting bad. And so we're seeing that explosion. It started in big tech and it's now flowing into other companies, right? We're even seeing food companies like McDonald's start to lay people off. This is getting serious. Well, as you lay more people off, you don't need as much office space. And this is office space that most companies are leasing. They don't own, all right? A lot of these are owned by your pension fund, but not owned. They're actually, and I used to deal with this, one of my real estate brokerages. We made all of our money selling properties, farmland, to a intermediary company. And I don't want to name them because they're going to get all pissed off. But essentially, they're big companies. One of the companies I can say that we didn't do a deal with is Agus. We never did a deal with them, but what they do is they buy these properties for pension funds and they manage them, right? So the pension fund will give them money. They actually purchase the property. It's not purchased in the name of the pension fund, and then they derive the profits from those properties, right? So Agus was one of the companies that we were always trying to pitch. And so it was just me and two partners. We owned a real estate brokerage, and that's what we did. We went for the big money. I was going for the 30, $50 million listings, not, dealing with residential stuff. I was a residential agent, but I was horrible at it because I knew what was coming. I talked somebody into buying a house. Oh, that's great for the next 3 or 4 years. And oh, yeah, look, you made some fake money because you're not going to do anything with it. And then it all comes crashing down and you can't even make the payment because the inflation wave, right? So I was a horrible real estate agent. By the way, I did just put out 2 new lessons on the real estate crash course for everybody that bought that. Go check those out because not everybody gets the email updates when new lessons come out. So I think we're up to like 29 lessons now. It says right here, KB, it says, the news of layoffs is unwelcome for the property type segment, which is experiencing weakening demand owing to remote working arrangements as well as increasing costs conscious companies. KBRA focused on companies announcing layoffs of at least 1,000 employees from 2022 through mid-March of 2023 to gauge exposure. Among the universe of nearly 5,700 office and mixed-use properties in CMBS 2.0 conduit and single asset, single borrower, large loan transactions, KBRA identified 266 lease exposures to layoff companies across 245 properties. So there's a lot of exposure here, okay? Together, these leases account for 33.3 million square feet, or on average, 29.6% of the respective property square footage. The properties secure 34 or 35 billion of CMBS loans on an allocated property balance basis. These loans equate to approximately 5.6% of current outstanding CMBS 2.0 balance. Okay, let me break this down very simply because this is insider stuff. This is what insiders that work in this industry are looking at, all these numbers and data points. Here's the very easy basis. The amount of companies that are laying people off that have exposure that are leasing office space is pretty big. And this data shows that all of that property that's being leased by companies that are laying people off, those companies are under distress and they're going to continue to be under distress for the time being. And eventually they are going to stop paying on their debts, their property debts. Why? Because they simply don't have enough. The unemployment, like laying people off, if you're a C-suite exec, C-suite being CFO, CEO, COO, things like that, really high up, they understand one thing. The low-hanging fruit to immediate cost savings is firing people, laying people off. That is first and foremost. Then you start looking at the other avenues, right, to start cutting costs. But if you need right now, you need money saved right now for the next 30 days, what's the fastest way? You figure out who you don't need on that sales floor. You figure out who you don't need in operations, and you cut them loose. And that is the low-hanging fruit for all C-suite execs. They know that is the first thing. If like, hey guys, we're in trouble. We can't make our debts. We need to save money right now. What do we do? Like, well, we got a bunch of people we just hired. We could just stop. A lot of times C-suites go, it's at a certain point, it's cheaper to pay our current employees more hours, give them the overtime, than to pay the cost of literally the new employees coming on, not only their wages, but how much we got to pay for their insurance. So they understand that is immediate, right? So that's what this company is looking at. They're like looking who's hiring, who's firing, and out of those people that are firing, how much of those companies are renting their spaces, and they're about to stop paying. All right. KBRA identified CMBS lease exposure to 45 out of 62 layoff companies. That simply means that out of the 62 layoff companies, 45 of them have lease exposure. All right. They don't own their buildings. They are more than likely going to start to default on those leases. These 45 companies had announced combined layoffs of 216,000 employees. You start to put that out over each day and you start to come up with a number, you're going, oh my gosh, literally thousands of people are losing their jobs every day. This is scary. And this is just out of the 62 layoff companies they're identifying. There's more. All right. You know, really, like I said, this exposure only it started in 2022 and ended as of March. And these are companies are laying off over 1,000 people in one whack. All right. There are so many other companies that are not laying off. They're laying off 999 and under, and there's a lot of them right now happening. So these numbers are actually tepid, timid. Like they're not the real numbers. Like they're just it's just a subsection of the market. But you got to start somewhere, right? So when you're evaluating the health and um, strength or weakness of a real estate economy industry, you have to start somewhere. So they're starting here, and it's not looking good. These are the big companies. The analysis reveals that tech, advertising, media, and information industries represent a meaningful portion of the layoff companies. Large tech companies such as Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft accounted for 18.6 million of the exposure. Now, another important part of that is that those tech companies are usually generally the highest paid employees too. So we're seeing a lot, like it's one thing to lay off a bunch of people. Let's say you lay off 1,000 people that are making $18, $20 an hour. It's another thing to say we just laid off 1,000 people that they're averaging literally 40 to 60, maybe even $70 an hour. The reason why it's such a big deal is because that is so much more purchasing power that now just got evaporated out of the economy. Okay. So that's less people going out and spending $60 an hour, $70 an hour to go out to eat, to go buy a new car, things like that. So you see the effects months and months and months down the road because the analytics come out and they're always looking back in history about 3 months, right? Quarterly reports through earning statements, through publicly traded companies. You don't see it in private unless you're like me and you want to go buy a business and you ask for their books. You don't see that. You see the publicly traded companies, that's in the past. So you have to remember, you're not going to see the evidence of Amazon laying off 10,000 people today until you see it months and months down the road. All right. It says the largest single lease exposure is to Warner Brothers Discovery, which leases 100% of the 1.5 million square foot of 30 Hudson Yards, securing a $1.4 billion loan, collateralizing uh, 2019 to 2030, which is not rated by KBRA. The related loan is also participating across 6 conduits. Think about this. All these companies that are going woke, like Bud Light, so awesome watching them just completely collapse. I'm never going to touch another Bud Light again. Why? You're not going to earn my trust back. You're just not. And unless you just straight up come back and say, we were wrong and this sucks. And no, we're not going to try and push our political views on you. Right. But here, that's neither here nor there. The point being is that you have like Warner Brothers and Discovery. Do you think that they're going to be in the woke crowd? There are so many companies like Disney right now that are faltering. They're laying off thousands of people because they went woke. So they're going broke. And you have companies like Warner Brothers that literally have a $1.4 billion loan out there. What happens when they can't pay? They're going to go into bankruptcy proceedings. There are companies like that that are going to go into bankruptcy. And that's what should get you excited about this real estate market and how it's going to affect your life, because there's going to be so many opportunities. Remember, all of those people a couple months ago weren't laid off. Amazon, Google, Meta, right? They're making good money. They had homes. And now they're being laid off and they're trying to find jobs that pay the exact same amount or more or close to, because they are in debt so much. In a couple of months, they're about to sell their home. And inventory is going to explode. The more people that get fired throughout the country, those homes are going to hit the market. And so if you've been in a market like me in California, where there's very little homes on the market, they're about to explode. And that's not the time to buy. So you need to be ready for that opportunity, because when it starts to cascade and homes are hitting the market so much that even the buyers, they get scared. Buyers in Austin are scared. They're like, why am I buying right now? There's inventory exploding. Las Vegas, inventory is exploding. Phoenix, inventory is exploding. When they go, I got to hold off. Now the sellers start to panic and they start to drop their houses because they have equity that they made over the last year. There are so many homes that were bought literally 2 years ago that they're already underwater on. And I say that with a grin because, guys, we're going to go and crush it. We're going to take advantage of this. Hey, to everybody that hit the thumbs up button, I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for helping build this channel. I'm so grateful. This is the Real Estate Ninja, and I'm out.